Hi everyone. So I recently asked myself, how much more time do I need on my image of M101? And I realized that it all depends on what the signal to noise ratio is I wanted. I remembered an article I read about it by Craig Stark. I looked up the article, but his own website with important information on it no longer works. So I decided to make my own SNR tool to calculate how much exposure time I'll need. I'll tell you how you can use the tool too. Welcome to Deep Sky Detail. Okay, so here is my image of M101. It has about 5 hours of integration time from a Boreal 7 or 8 sky. As you can see, the spiral arms are still pretty noisy. I kinda wanted to get an estimate for how much more exposure time I'll need to make it less noisy. A few years back, I read an article by Craig Stark on the subject. Craig Stark is the original developer of PhD-2, a neuroscientist and pretty much my hero. The article is still up on Cloudy Nights. In it, he explains step by step how to measure the SNR of part of an astro image. He even created an Excel spreadsheet to help with the calculations. However, when I try clicking on the link to the spreadsheet, it no longer exists, and neither does his website. I really enjoyed reading his blogs. Luckily, I found a copy of it on Wayback Machine and downloaded it. The spreadsheet is fine, but I thought it could be put into an app that would work pretty well. I then realized that what I wanted to calculate would probably help a lot of astrophotographers, and so I got to work. Here's what the web app looks like right now. But before we get into that, you're going to need some things. You'll need a light frame of your target, a matched dark, a bias frame, your camera's gain in electrons per ADU, and your camera's read noise. Okay, so first open up your light frame in Serial or PixInsight or whatever can read the ADU of individual pixels. Next, select a faint area of your target. Here I'm selecting part of the faint spiral arm of M101. Somehow get the statistics for that area. In Serial, that means right-clicking and selecting statistics. You'll see a mean ADU value. That's the original signal of your target plus the sky background. Write that down. You're going to need it. Okay, but we don't want the sky background signal to be part of our SNR calculation. So select another part of the image that does not contain your target and is just the naked sky. No, not like that. Anyway, get the mean of that area too. It will be subtracted from the first number. You now have two numbers associated with your light frame. Keep track of them. Make sure both selections come from roughly the same area of the sky. Okay, next do the same thing with a dark frame or a master dark frame that is matched to the light frame. You can either select an area or use the average of the whole image. It really doesn't matter. Then do the same thing with a bias frame or a master bias. You need to find the gain in electrons per ADU for your camera as well as the read noise. Both of these numbers can usually be found on the manufacturer's website. My camera is a ZWO 294mm. I went to the website and found the appropriate graphs. I usually use a regular gain of 120 and the graph helps me convert that to electrons per ADU gain. I then did the same thing for the read noise graph. My numbers are 0.9 and 2 respectively. The next step is to put all the numbers into the web application. It should be a fairly straightforward process at this point. You have the DSO plus sky glow signal from your light frame, as well as the sky glow background from your light frame, the dark signal from the dark frame, the bias signal from your bias frame, and your camera's gain and read noise. You'll also need to specify what you want your signal to noise ratio to be. A good rule of thumb is that 30 is mediocre, 60 is good, and 90 is really pretty good. Let's go with 100. Oh yeah, you need to specify the exposure length of your light frame. Duh. Once all those are in, the application will automatically update and tell you how many exposures you will need. It will also convert that into total hours of integration. With the parameters I've set, it looks like I will need 5,237 exposures that are 15 seconds long to get an SNR of 100. That's almost 22 hours. You'll also get a pretty nice looking graph. Let's quickly review how to interpret it. On the x-axis is the number of subframes. On the y-axis is SNR. The blue line tells you estimated SNRs given a number of subframes. What's nice about the graph is that you can use your mouse to hover over the line and it will give you the SNR for a given number of subframes. Just hover over the blue line and you'll see it pop out with the numbers. Nice. On the bottom is a slider. Maybe you want to take longer exposures than what you've measured with your first light frame. Well, you can use the slider to multiply the exposure duration by X amount, so you can multiply it by 0.2 or 5, and the results will show up on the bottom graph. Let's try it out. So if I take 75-second exposures, so 5 times as long as the current light frame, I will need 1,043 exposures to get an SNR of 100, which is still almost 22 hours. On the side panel, you might notice another slider called Max Exposures. This just controls the range of the x-axis on the graph. It goes all the way up to 10,000 subscribers? 10,000 subframes. Let's do one last thing and estimate how light pollution affects imaging time. We'll reduce the DSO plus SkyGlow signal and SkyGlow background ADU numbers by 100 each. That's about a 16% decrease in light pollution, taking into account the dark signal. We've decreased our total exposure time by more than 4 hours. Now let's decrease those numbers by 200, a 50% decrease in light pollution. Well, now we only need 11.5 hours of exposure time. So you know what to do, get to a dark site. There are a couple of caveats. This tool is only good as an estimate. It doesn't take into account changes in environmental conditions like moon phase or haze. The app is available for free on the site pinned in the comments. The site is free for me to host on only up until a certain point. If too many people use the app in a month, it will shut down for a couple of weeks. If you want more available, consider the link at the bottom of the web app. I will be testing this with my own data and hopefully have a follow-up video sometime to see how accurate it is. That's pretty much it for this video. There's just one last thing. Thank you, Craig Stark, wherever you are, for making the post on cloudy nights. And thank you, viewer, for watching.